You're listening to Behind the Wheel on RacingJunk.com. You've read the stories of the drivers and others involved in the sport that we all love. Now hear their stories firsthand via our all-new podcast to find out how their passion for motorsports has made life worth living.
Happy holidays.
Holidays. Are you thinking about food?
Happy holidays. Oh, wait a minute. Hang on. I got to get this.
Uh-oh.
You gotta describe this, Ellen.
Uh-oh. I'm scared of what he's going to show us. He has a giant Santa hat that reaches to the floor.
All right, this is how.
No. No,
right.
seriously.
Yes.
I wish y'all could see this.
This is how. Look, we'll take a picture. Hang on. All right, we're gonna take a picture. I'm gonna do a picture. I can't even see you. Where'd you go?
I'm going to take a picture.
There we go. All right.
Chris is supposed to be like the gangster pimp of Santa Clauses, I guess.
I
is
am
that
the
what we're going
Christmas
for?
pimp. How'd
The
you
Christmas
know?
pimp.
Yes, my
Doesn't
friend.
that take not the long fuzzy Santa hat, but the actual pimp hat?
The pimp hat?
Yeah.
I mean,
That's
no.
not a pimp hat.
No. The pimp hat is still in play. But the great thing about this 6-foot Santa Claus hat is it doubles as a scarf.
Oh
Look
my
at that.
God.
Doubles as a scarf. I love it. See, here at Behind the Wheel on RacingJunk.com, we just have way too much fun. But it's the hollandaise.
It is the holidays.
It is the hollandaise. And
So what is Christmas pimp going to bring me?
I'm gonna give you
scared.
give you a greasy pork sandwich served on a dirty ashtray.
Oh,
what I'm
boy.
gonna give you. That's what's gonna happen. I'm gonna give you some movie tickets.
Movie tickets. Oh,
Yeah.
boy.
Yeah, I'm gonna give you movie tickets, and then I'm gonna give you an indictment. An indictment for your New England Patriots, who obviously
my
can't
God.
win a game without cheating.
Oh, can we say set up? Come on. Is it
wait a
in
minute, hang on.
Every analyst said we were set up. Come on.
You know, next year we're gonna add a video component to this podcast.
Oh, I'm scared of that part.
There we go.
Oh,
Here,
no, he
this
needs the
is-
glasses to go
This,
in.
this is how. This is how your fan base looks at you and your team through beer goggles, because y'all cannot believe that your team cheats as much as they do. Now, I know this is a
whatever.
racing podcast, and we got a super one lined up for you today.
Yes.
Let me tell you, it's the holidays. I got your Christmas coming early.
He can't even see the microphone with these glasses on.
I
y'all.
can. I'm going to take everything off. Plus, his hat is so thick, it's like a Russian kashka. So I think I'm going to have to take it off here in a minute. It's burning my head up. And I got a blazer with gingerbread on.
It says bite me all
That
over
says
it, y'all.
bite me
for
all
real.
over it. Yeah. That's what I want you to do for the holidays. Bite me.
He just said that because his bears suck.
Bears do suck. But you know what doesn't suck?
I don't know.
Racing.
That's right.
Racing doesn't suck.
I'm kind of missing
Well,
it right now. I
NASCAR
mean, it's
sucks.
kind of, yeah. Well, I don't know if you want to say that, right? No. That's just our opinion.
well,
That,
more
that is not the
announcements coming.
opinion endorsed by Racing Junk.
That is not the opinion of Chris Young and or the affiliates of RacingJunk.com or Behind the Wheel. But you know what? No, I during this holiday season, during this time of reflection, this really made me think about one thing that really impacts me as a person, and that is there's not enough brisket to go around. And I want people to stop touching my brisket and taking it when I make it. If I spend 13, 14 hours smoking a brisket and then 4 hours working on it afterwards, I don't want you putting your hands on it.
Right?
So this holiday season, don't touch my plate.
I won't.
You will not see a next holiday. You won't see the New Year's. But
Okay, here, case in point, people, if you come near Chris and he's got a plate, just walk away.
if you see me with
Or you
brisket,
walk away with a stump.
or if you see me with any type of smoked meat, and it doesn't matter if I'm at a press event, if it's a media day, if I'm interviewing somebody, if there's a plate of smoked meats near me, I'm in a different world at that point in time. I might be talking to you, I might be saying something, but I'm in a different world. And if you break me from that world, it's like asking Kim Jong-il.
Isn't it not ill?
I don't know. They're all ill out there anyway. If, saying something bad to him about Dennis Rodman, you will solicit the same response. Speaking of responses, I want to thank Sharon Magnet.
Yes.
Real inspiration, both on and off the track. And this season, a lot of our guests have been extremely motivational, extremely inspirational, and that's made me feel good for what we've done in 2019. 2020, we have a lot of great stuff coming. I was telling Ellen earlier about some changes that I have at work that's really going to kind of boost some things up for us in 2020. Really exciting stuff.
Yeah.
You got to follow me.
You got to follow us.
You got to follow us.
I think Chris is trying to take over the podcast, y'all. I might get kicked out in 2020.
No, you kidding me? Look, if you haven't figured out by now, Ellen knows everything. I'm just the.
I know nothing. I don't know what he's talking about.
I'm the bull in the china shop. I blow everything up. I can't help it. It's what I do. I see something nice and pretty, and I just go destroy it. But you have done a phenomenal job this year of getting talent.
Thank you.
Of people who have affected both on and off the road. I mean, we had an American Ninja Warrior.
I know.
We had national champions. We had record breakers. We had inspirational motivators. We had people that some podcasts would die to have. So, tip of the hat to you.
Thank you.
Fantastic job this year. And in case you forgot, it's that magical time of year to spend with your family and friends. So why not do so? Catching a movie this holiday season.
Going to the movies.
Yeah. I mean, for those of you who may be movie buffs, you might be familiar with the new Matt Damon movie, 20th Century Fox, Ford versus Ferrari.
Ellen went and saw it at Thanksgiving, and yes, I know Thanksgiving's long gone, and we're almost. In fact, by the time we have this posted, we might be over Christmas. Who knows? But this movie is still out, and this movie was amazing. I saw it the week it opened, and as a racing phenom and somebody who's really into racing and cars, I don't even know what I'm more into, racing or cars. This movie was amazing. You got to see how Ford took over the sports car world. Yep. You got to see how Carroll Shelby became who Carroll Shelby. Yeah, because honestly, at the beginning of the movie, Carroll Shelby was nobody.
Right.
And, now...
But did they get the personalities right?
Matt Damon actually was a terrific Carroll Shelby.
Was he? Okay.
I was not familiar with the driver that drove for him.
Okay. Yeah,
in the race.
Me either. Yeah. But
prior
I interviewed
to this
Carroll
movie
years ago.
Yes.
Back when I was doing morning
radio.
But
I've actually, the autobiographies I've seen and information I've seen about the driver who drove in the Le Mans race, which we're going to be talking a little bit about.
Right.
The actor who played him was almost dead on. So, but I was shocked at how well Matt Damon played Carroll Shelby because I've known a lot about Carroll Shelby over the years. Now, granted, I don't know if Carroll Shelby would agree to the age he is now, but if you look back on his youth, he looks nothing like him. But
it's Matt Damon.
They did put weight on him.
Right. Well, Shelby, but I mean, I'm sure they did a really good job with the posture.
Yes.
I haven't seen the movie. I refuse to go to movies
incredible.
now until they come out on DVD or I can hack it.
It is a long 3-hour movie, but if you love racing and you love cars, especially classic cars,
it's 3 hours.
It's 3 hours.
Good Lord. I don't even.
Chris can barely sit still for 3 hours.
I don't even want to do anything that feels good for 3 hours. I'm at that age, Ellen. I'm at that age where it's like, you got my attention for a little while, and that's
like
about it.
20 minutes, and that's it.
20 minutes, 7.
That's pushing it.
8 minutes tops. But you know what? It's like a bull ride. You hang on for them 8 minutes, you're in the championship circle. That's all I'm saying. It even comes with a commemorative belt buckle. But this, so the way we work, if you haven't figured it out here on Behind the Wheel on RacingJunk.com, it would have been easy for somebody to contact 20th Century Fox and say, hey, give me somebody from the studio.
They probably told us no.
They probably would have told us no. But what did we do?
We went with the next best thing. I mean,
not even the next best thing. We went
with the best
with
thing. We really went with the even better thing. You're right. Because honestly, if you're a car buff and you're into racing and you're into the history of racing,
which is what we are on RacingJunk.com.
That's right. Then you want to go for the people who know the real story, not the Hollywood story. Mm-hmm. So we went straight to the source. We didn't go straight to Carroll Shelby unless we woke him up out of the grave.
Yeah, that'd be I was going to say, that'd be an interesting conversation.
That would be. Yeah. But someday maybe we'll get somebody from the grave, which, oh my gosh, Chris, if we open that door, it's limitless.
I'm sure technology will get us there one day, but I don't want to be around when it does because you know my feelings about zombies.
Hey, I'll talk to them, but they'll talk to me. Just don't bite me.
No, I'm really excited because we got Dan Kahn with Kahn Media, huge Los Angeles automotive collector and co-founder of the Peterson Automotive Museum, Bruce Meyer, who now owns the race cars made famous in that hit movie. So we got the sources
That's right.
of what that movie's about.
That's right.
That's our Christmas gift to you. Besides, I'm going to send everybody who wants one, an 8.5 by 10 autographed glossy headshot of myself.
With his beer goggles on. I
With
don't
my
think
beer
anybody
goggles
wants
on.
this, Chris, but, I think you can send it in the mail, and most of it will end up in a bird pile, but why not?
Stevie Wonder gave me this haircut. People
At least you can keep
lined
us
up.
warm with our Yule logs and your picture burning in the fireplace.
Let me tell
this
you what,
holiday.
I can keep you warm with the hot air I spew. I'm just saying. So we got to take a brief break where we're going to get some sponsorship mentions here. Got to pay the bills.
That's right.
As they say, got to pay the bills. Hey, give us 2 minutes and 2 seconds. We got to pay the bills. Dear Lord. Thank God we're
Was
not
that Bill
way.
Cosby?
No, that was not Bill Cosby. That was my horrible impression of Harry Carey.
That sounded like Bill
You never,
Cosby.
you never heard of Harry Carey?
It sounded like Bill Cosby
No,
swallowed.
Bill Cosby would be, come here, Ellen, won't you take a sip of this drink? No, oh, God, that's horrible. Oh, I take that back. Oh, I so take that back. You know what?
I don't want any pudding pops anymore.
I am glad I got one of the best legal representation firms in the country. Because the
They're on your speed dial.
C&Ds and the suits that come my way, oh, dear Lord. I mean, just the stuff I talk about Tom Brady, he's got his attorney on speed dial anytime he listens. And you're cheating Kraft.
Oh, my God. Whatever.
Just bless their hearts. You know what? It's a holiday season. It's that time of year when we just going to start saying, if we can't say nothing nice, we not going to say nothing at all.
That's
And
right.
I'm just going to say, bless their hearts. Bless their little hearts. Because they need it. They need that plate of cookies more than I need it. So instead of taking it to the Sunday supper, I'm just going to send it right up to the New England Patriots because those little cheating bastards, they need those cookies more than I do. Bless them and their hearts. We will be back in just a minute behind the wheel on racingjunk.com. Dan Kahn and Bruce Meyer. Don't go anywhere. This one's going to be awesome. Hang on.
Attention racers, race fans, and gearheads. If you're looking to buy, sell, or trade the stuff that stokes your engine, then check out racingjunk.com. Racingjunk.com is the world's #1 online racing and performance classifieds, where you'll find what you need to rock your ride. Check us out at racingjunk.com. Racing and performance classifieds built to go fast.
So welcome back to Behind the Wheel on racingjunk.com. Joining us on the phone right now is Dan Kahn. Now, Dan, we talked about Kahn Media a little bit, but if you don't mind, tell us a little bit about you and Kahn Media out there in beautiful LA.
Yeah, absolutely, and thanks again for having me on. I've been in the automotive aftermarket my whole life and started my business about 11 years ago in 2008, and we focus on primarily automotive aftermarket and performance brands. We do PR, marketing, a lot of video production, and event promotion.
Oh, I heard that magical production word there, Dan.
Chris knows that word very well.
Do you need anybody that likes to puke?
Stupid.
Because the one thing that kills me about commercial production, and I've been in audio production for years, is you hear those guys that's going to be sunny and 72 in the big city. And out there in LA, you got my buddy Shadow Stevens, who's the king of that.
That's right. And you've got the perfect voice. I mean, you can tell you've been doing this a while.
Oh, he has. He's been doing this a little too long.
I mean, after the life change, I kind of took those lessons on how to speech a little bit better and put the emphasis on the right syllable. But hey, tell
And
me.
it didn't work.
Now, tell me, and we're going to deep dive into the movie here in a minute, but, Bruce was supposed to join the call with us. He's running a little bit late, so we're going to take this minute to kind of slay him a little bit.
Oh, no.
Tell me about your relationship with Bruce.
Yeah, absolutely. So Bruce is a good friend and also really sort of a mentor to me. He's a pretty incredible guy, to be honest. And I sort of known about him for years, and we've gotten to know each other very well over the last decade or so as I've worked on the Peterson Automotive Museum's PR and marketing. And Bruce, for those who don't know who he is, he's sort of the original car guy. So he's been racing and collecting and been a pretty dominant force in sort of generally the entire car scene since the 70s. And what's sort of amazing about him is, people probably who are drag race guys or circle track guys, or, they're into street rods, or they're into, whatever, Ferraris. it's pretty rare to find someone who's into everything.
Oh.
Bruce is into everything.
I was going to say, yeah, that's Ellen up one side and down the other. They might be spirit animals of each other.
Oh, we might.
Well, yeah, and it's crazy. And so he's one of these guys where he's self-made, you know, and he ran a family business for many years and would just, you know, buy right. And so he has some cars where if you look at his collection, you go, oh my God, you know, he must be a billionaire or something. But the thing
That's
is,
what I was
he's just
thinking
always.
when I looked at it yesterday, because there's a YouTube video of it up yesterday.
Yeah,
And
but
I was
it's
like,
just, in the early 70s, he bought a Ferrari 275 GTB4.
Oh, my God.
When, I mean, it was an expensive car, but it was not a crazy expensive car. It was probably, you know, low five figures. Now that's a multi-million dollar car. When he bought the, you know, Greer Black Prud'homme Dragster, which is one of the most seminal, you know, top fuel cars of all time, it was a basket case sitting in some guy's garage. Nobody was, there weren't tackle fests back then. Nobody was restoring, you know, old dragsters. Same thing with the Doane Spencer Roadster. Again, you know, that's probably, arguably, the most important hot rod of all time. But when he bought it, it was just an old hot rod sitting in someone's garage. And so he's, you know, he's had really good taste and really good timing, but what makes Bruce sort of amazing is he's become sort of a taste maker. So he was the guy that was, at least in part, responsible for bringing a hot rod class to Pebble Beach, where before that, there was all these kind of blue blazer guys looking down their nose at the hot rodders, and they're all about like Duesenbergs and, you know, Mercedes SKs, and here come these, you know, SoCal guys with hot rods, and they're going like, what are you doing here? Bruce normalized that. He's the one who made that happen. And he's done that for so many different kind of like tribes within the car culture that's why I think he's so kind of well liked and well respected by people.
I mean, that's so I can just tell from you talking about it, not only do you have a level of respect for Bruce that I think anybody would be envious of, but I can kind of pick up on the fact that you yourself are a car guy as well.
Is he ready?
I am, born and bred.
So how did that get started?
About 5 minutes, how about that?
I was, well, third-generation car guy. My grandfather came back from World War II, started a business, and was more of a restoration person. He wasn't really a hot rodder. My dad was sort of a typical boomer, cruising Van Nuys Boulevard in the mid-'60s, building, you know, hot rods and 55 Chevys, that kind of thing. So
nice. Yeah, just like my dad.
Yeah. So, you know, I kind of I literally grew up reading Hot Rod Magazine. That's what I learned to read on. Bought my first car, you know, 68 Mustang Fastback at 14.
Nice.
I guess my little twist on the thing that...
Sorry, I'm like, how did you get a Mustang Fastback at 14 years old?
Yeah.
Sorry, I just...
No, so you know, the funny thing is I always wanted a Fastback, and... You know, in the early 90s, there was an old junky one around the corner from us rotting in a neighbor's driveway. And, you know, it was mostly yellow with a couple primer fenders. And I for some reason, I zeroed in and said, I want that car. And I kind of saved some money. And for those of your listeners who aren't in Southern California, we had a big earthquake in 94. And it was very fortuitous for me because my high school was like half demolished. So even at 14, I was able to work because school was closed for 2 months. And my dad's in construction. So I was able to earn enough money swinging a hammer that I then took all that money and just walked over to that neighbor and said, hey, this thing's been rotting in your driveway for the decade that we've lived here. Can I buy it?
See,
and they sold me the car.
This is what I love hearing. We had almost the exact same path growing up. I loved Hot Rod Magazine, but my dad made me rebuild a Pontiac 6000 in the basement while a 1950 Ford sat at my godfather's farm. And when I was 16, I had no respect for that thing. I mean, it was beautiful. Jet black, had the white and red leather interior, suicide doors, had a 454 inside that thing. And my dad, the whole time, he would say, you want to work on that? You want to work on that? You want to work on that? Not once did I say, yeah, let's go work on that. I was trying to earn a Ford Bronco 2.
Oh, my God, why?
Well, because that's what I thought was cool back then.
Oh,
I had a mullet and a members-only jacket, Ellen.
That's right. I remember that.
I still
You tell
do.
me about that anyway.
Dan,
Well,
that is...
I mean, y'all both making me jealous because you know what I had to drive to begin with?
Well, I mean, you
I had
rode
to
a
drive
tricycle.
I learned to drive on a Pontiac hearse, okay? And then
Nice.
And then
A hearse like a
hearse.
funeral home.
Like a hearse.
Wow.
Yes. Okay, my dad bought this thing. It was so beat up for $250 from a friend of his at work. It's not funny.
The best part is Dan had to clarify that. I didn't want to. I'm glad he did.
It could have been like a hearse shifter edition something.
No.
Okay.
Dad bought it for $250 from a guy out of his driveway that he worked with.
It's a party wagon. But I mean,
who wants to party at a hearse?
Yeah, Dan's out there knocking 10 to be able to rebuild this thing, and now he's got Kahn Media, which, tell us a little bit about what Kahn Media is and what they do.
Okay, yeah. So we do, we handle kind of all forms of marketing, mostly public relations, media. Like I said, we do a lot of video production, a lot of social media marketing. So all forms of marketing for primarily automotive companies. So everything from, we're the agency of record for Lotus in North America. We handle all of Rolex's PR in North America. So it's like the Rolex 24 at Daytona and the Rolex Reunion and Formula One, all the way down to, a lot of startups. We help a lot of startup companies. And then kind of where I came from is my background is really from the aftermarket. And that's where I have a lot of affinity and love for the performance aftermarket. So about half of our clients are in that market. And that's, everything from companies like Magnaflow and Aeromotive and a lot of great kind of performance brands to car builders like the Ring Brothers and Classic Recreations and Speedcore. So we work with sort of a gamut, everything from builders to parts companies to automakers to even some luxury brands. And what we do for them kind of varies depending on the account, but at the end of the day, really what we like to say is we help connect brands with car guys. And I use that in the sort of Barry Maguire sense of car guys. Like our car guys can be girls too. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. Well, it's funny because I could see how you were kind of tying in Peterson Automotive, the museum, into what into this latest project that was kind of based on the Ford really is the true history of the Ford versus Ferrari film that I happened to watch opening weekend and Thanksgiving. I'm really curious, how did that project come up, and how are you able to find everyone that was featured in that film? I mean, you got Mario Andretti, who I was honored to speak to on the phone many years ago. Still have yet to meet the man in person. I'd probably pass out if I did. You've got all the drivers, well, not all of them, obviously, but two of the most prominent drivers in the 1966 Le Mans. How did that come about? What was the idea, and did that idea come up before the whole Ford versus Ferrari film?
It did. So the funny thing is, we've been the agency of record for the Peterson for a long time now, about 7 years. It's been a great, very collaborative relationship. We really, I'm very fortunate. Their executive director, Terry Cargus, is a friend. Bruce was their founding chairman. And it's great, but typically what we do for them is they come up with the ideas, we market them. In this particular sense, in this case, that's not how it went down. And really, I'm a big racing fan. I'm a motorsports fan. I'm a Shelby fan. I've always kind of followed anything Shelby related. I was a member of the Shelby American Automobile Club for years and years, even though I never had the chance to own one. I was more of a Mustang guy. And one of our, really about 8 years ago, a guy named A.J. Baim wrote a book called Go Like Hell. And A.J., he used to write for Maxim, and then he went to go work for The Drive, and now he writes for the Wall Street Journal. He does a lot of nonfiction. And he had written a couple of other books, but this was his first sort of nonfiction book that really made a big impact on a lot of people. And it was sort of the inside story of the Ford versus Ferrari war. Incidentally, that is the same book that the current movie is based on.
Right.
So they licensed that book and bought the rights to it and all that, and that ended up turning into the Matt Damon movie. But years ago, long before this thing was in production, I read the book. AJ's kind of a friend. I called him and I said, "Hey, this is unbelievable. You did an amazing job." And I didn't set out to make a movie. I was just sort of obsessed with the book, and I read it a couple times and thought it was great. And at the end of the day, we were sort of trying to figure out, well, the 50th anniversary of the Le Mans win was coming up in 16, and in late, I think it was December of 15, I had this idea where I said, a lot of those guys that were around back then still live in SoCal, maybe we can find a couple of them and interview them and put some videos up on the Peterson's YouTube channel. And we were doing a lot of video work for the Peterson back then, and so that's how it all started. Is we sort of kind of started kicking this idea around, and we knew Lance Stander, who owns Superformance, which is the company that's like licensed by Shelby to build all these continuation cars, and Lance has an exact clone of the McLaren Amon GT40-1, and I thought, wow, maybe if we could do a couple of interviews with these guys in front of the car that looks just like the original car, that'd be kind of neat. And it kind of started evolving. And what happened is we ended up interviewing AJ, and he's really good on camera, and if you've seen our film, he's excellent. So he told a great story. And right after that, we found out Preston Lerner, who's another automotive journalist, was going to publish a similar book, but his was more sort of photo-oriented, and it was with a lot of a guy named Dave Friedman's photos. And what's interesting about Dave Friedman is he was a teenager with a 35 millimeter camera that Carroll Shelby, who was a great racer but was also sort of notoriously thrifty, he found this teenager who was a young guy and was talented with a camera, but also was a teenager, so wasn't particularly expensive. And he said, "Hey, Dave, you're our new photographer. Go document everything."
They actually had a version of him in the Ford versus Ferrari film. They found a teenager and he was going with them to the racetrack. Yeah, because they weren't really paying.
Exactly. And what's interesting about Dave... Exactly. And so, yeah, there was a character based on him in the movie. And what's interesting about Dave is he spent a couple of his very formative years covering what turned out to be this really historic motorsports achievement. He then went on to have this amazing career in Hollywood as a set photographer. And he's one of the only people who's ever gotten an Academy Award for still photography.
Wow.
So he had this first career that was really amazing when most of us were still messing around as teenagers. Then he went on to have this second amazing career. So he's a pretty blessed guy. And so we found him. He lives in Southern California. And so we said, "Hey, Dave, you contributed photos to this Preston Lerner book. Can we interview you?" And he said, "Yeah." So now we've got, AJ interviewed. We have Preston Lerner interviewed, talking about his book. We brought Dave Friedman down, and we're interviewing him. And literally, at the end of the interview, he looked at us and he said, "Well, hey, you should interview Charlie." And we said, "Well, who's Charlie?" And he said, "Charlie Agapu." And I said, I don't know who that is. He said, "That was Ken Miles' crew chief. He lives in Southern California. He's a Rolls-Royce mechanic." I went, "Okay, do you have his phone number?" "Yeah, here it is." "Oh, okay." So we went and we got Charlie and we interviewed him. And when we were at his shop, he kind of said, "Hey, I've got all these old photos. Do you want to look at them?" And we're going like, "Yeah." And he brings all this archival stuff. And it's sort of, that was when we finally had this idea. The light bulb went off. And that was in probably March of 16 that we realized, hey, I think we have something here.
That's amazing.
Maybe we can actually turn this into a documentary about that win. And at that point, that had never been done. No one had done any kind of film on that whole, based on the book or on the Ford versus Ferrari war. And as we started talking to people, what's different about our movie, obviously it's a very, 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 very low budget short film documentary versus a big budget Hollywood
like
movie.
You would see on the History Channel, but in a racing sense.
Right.
And I actually found it incredibly interesting.
Yeah, and it's what major box office movies are based off of.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, thank you. And what we've kind of focused on with ours was the finish. And I don't want to sort of spoil the movie for people who haven't seen it yet, but there's a very controversial finish at the end that happened in real life in Le Mans, and they kind of replicate it in the Christian Bale Matt Damon movie. And I had always heard about this big Ford win at Le Mans '66, but I didn't understand kind of what happened to Ken Miles. So when we sort of talked to Charlie Agapu and we figured that out, we went, oh, that's the story. We need to tell the story of the finish. And that's where the 8 meters name of our film comes from, is there was an 8 meter spread between the first place car and the second place car at the start of the race.
Wow.
So that's where it came from. And those kind of fortuitous, kind of random, happy accidents that kind of kept presenting themselves, they just kept coming. And finally, we had so much stuff in the can that we knew we wanted to make a documentary, and we knew we wanted to release it on June 18th, so exactly 50 years to the day from the win at Le Mans. And we thought, Bruce McLaren has been dead for decades, but if Eamon's still alive, and no one had heard from him in years, and he would occasionally show up at a track event, but he was an old man, and we had heard he was living in New Zealand, and I thought, gosh, if we can get him, that's amazing. And so we literally talked to anyone we could find in motorsports and media. Nobody knew how to reach him. And I finally have a cousin who lives in New Zealand. And I called her and I said, do you have a copy of the White Pages? And I figured, this is an old man.
The White Pages.
I don't even think I'm in the White Pages anymore.
Right.
But I had a cousin say, I said, can you track down the White Pages and see if someone named Chris or Christopher Amon is in the White Pages? And sure enough, he was. And we called and we talked to his wife, and she said, he's not feeling well, and he's fallen ill, and he's not really seeing anybody. And we said, well, if there's any way, this really amazing anniversary is coming up for this incredible thing that he did. And he was so gracious. He got on the phone and he said, look, if you can get someone over here in the next week or two, I'll do it. But keep in mind, this is halfway around the world.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah.
So, we're kind of going like, okay, we have no budget. Nobody's paying for this. It's completely self-funded. I can't afford to send my guys to New Zealand. I don't know what to do. So we found a wedding videographer in the next town over from him.
Wow.
And we just kind of grilled this guy and said, what kind of gear to use? What kind of audio equipment to use? And we kind of went through everything, and it all sounded okay. And we came up with a price, and we sent him a list of questions, and we prayed. And we said, okay, hopefully it works. And it worked. And we got a great interview with Chris, and he was amazing. We got the interview, and unfortunately and tragically, only about a month and a half after we interviewed him, he passed away.
Oh, man.
So
that's rough.
We got one of the last interviews ever with him.
Dude.
And then the Mario Andretti thing you mentioned was really, again, a happy accident where the Peterson was doing an event celebrating sort of the winningest Indy drivers of all time.
The Peterson Automotive Museum?
Yes.
Yeah.
And they were doing
you know what?
something.
Actually, Dan, speaking of, guess who's trying to call us right now?
Yeah, can we get on the phone?
Oh, let's get him in.
Yeah, I was going to say, you already gave Bruce a great intro, but hang on. Let's see if we can get him on the phone. So,
hang on
there's
just a
the
second.
call. There we go. All right, so we're going to try to. It's so funny that you bring that up. The timing is almost
Impeccable.
perfect.
Yeah.
Which, owning
Hello?
a media group.
Bruce?
Hey, Bruce.
Hey.
Hi, this is Dylan Richardson and Chris Young from Racing Junk. How are you?
I'm doing really well. Thank you. How are you doing?
Good.
We are
Sorry
great.
we're running behind on calling you. We
Yeah,
once, but
and actually, your buddy Dan Kahn should be on the call with us too. Dan, you still there?
I'm here. Hey, Bruce.
Dan, hi.
Let me tell you, Dan gave you such a great, glorious introduction. You just are the automotive man's man, and we are honored to have you here. We're actually already rolling with the interview. And Dan, if you don't mind, tell Bruce real quick, you were just talking about the Mario Andretti exhibit, so please continue.
Bruce, so Chris and Ellen were asking about, in the 8 meters film on the Peterson YouTube, how we got Mario Andretti. So I was explaining that we did that event a few years ago now that honored the winningest drivers of IndyCar, and that's why Mario was at the museum. And so while he was there, we asked him about driving a GT40 at Le Mans. He was really gracious. He was a gentleman. He was fun to interview him.
Mario's a great guy and so personable and easy to speak with. He's a guy that he's not out in the public a lot, so you kind of wonder if he's very reclusive, but he's certainly not. And he's welcoming, and he loves the sport and all the people associated with it. So he's a real asset to motorsports.
Yeah, and I interviewed Mario a few years ago on the phone, which I was hoping I could meet him in person, but at least we got to talk on the phone. And the whole time I was extremely nervous because he's been a hero of mine since I was probably 7 or 8 years old. So, of course, his face.
Which is only about 12 years ago.
Oh, whatever. You wish. I wish. But you were talking about the IndyCar exhibit and the winning exhibit. You also have your winning numbers exhibit at the Peterson Museum now.
Correct. Right. And I thought you were talking about Ganassi, because we just opened a Chip Ganassi exhibit as well.
Oh, cool.
And he's another just bigger than life, wonderful human being, loves the sport, loved the people associated with it. So his exhibit is right across from mine, which is called Winning Numbers.
Right. Tell us a little bit about that exhibit, because, we were talking a little bit about Ford versus Ferrari and the fact that the 8 meters film came out prior to this big Hollywood film that's out now. Tell us about the Winning Numbers exhibit and how it kind of reflects or ties into the 8 meters film and the whole Ford versus Ferrari.
Sure. Well, I mean, the Ford versus Ferrari topic is huge, and Dan made that 8 meters film a long time ago. Just for mankind, and it was a great film because, I'm old enough to have lived through all that. I knew Carol extremely well, and Ken Miles' son is a very close friend of mine, so I'm pretty close to the whole situation, and so my exhibit, on the other hand, has very little to do with the 8 meters and the 1966 Le Mans, but we do have 2 cars in the exhibit that they borrowed, for making of the movie, and most of the cars in the movie, like 99% of them are continuation cars. Some people call them replicas, some people call them continuation, and they're really well done. I mean, even the experts could hardly tell that those weren't the actual cars. So for the scene in the factory, they borrowed a silver short wheelbase Berlinetta, which I say I own, but I never consider myself an owner, just a caretaker or custodian. But it also won Le Mans in '61, and then they have a silver Testarossa, which is also on exhibit at the Winning Numbers, and that's and that was, both those were in the movie, and they're both in our gallery, and they're part of 10 cars. Actually, there's like a dozen cars, and we rotate some, but we have 5 Le Mans winners, and the very first Cobra, serial number 1, and then a couple. All good. Well, the Cobra was built by hot rodders, and so I'm a huge fan, proponent, promoter of the importance of hot rodding. And in the exhibit Winning Numbers, we have the world's fastest coupe, which was on the cover of Hot Rod in 1950, and we also have a belly tank that was another hot rod example that was done on the cover of 1948, I believe. But the early years of hot rodding that was before sports cars and before the Americans kind of caught on to Le Mans, So, anyways, we have those. We have Don Prudhomme's first dragster, the Greer Black Prudhomme car, and we have a Bizzarini, which won Le Mans in 1965. And few people know about Bizzarini, but he was head of Ferrari racing from the 50s up until the early 60s, and then they had a thing called the Palace Revolt, and he was dismissed. It's a long story. It's a whole session on that. But anyway, so he built a car. He drove it to Le Mans. He won Le Mans. He drove it home. So that's also in the exhibit. And then we have the Le Mans winning Porsche from 1979, which was one of the very few kind of production cars that won overall, beat the prototypes, and it was a privateer.
Yeah, I was going to say that was one of the first line cars that ever won Le Mans.
That was a really big deal for Porsche and for privateers and for production cars. So, and that car has an interesting story because it was owned and driven by the Whittington brothers, who were famous in motorsport.
Bruce, this is Chris. So, I mean, not only is my dad going to be extremely jealous I'm talking to you, but I'm extremely envious of you in general, just because of the hardware that you're able to be around. What was it like to know that they were going to be making a movie, Ford versus Ferrari, and they came to you wanting some of that hardware for the movie? What was that like?
Well, in my early years, I lent out a few cars to the movies, from Gatsby and a few other, Batman and some of those, and they'd always kind of come back a little less than they went out. So when Ferrari wanted, 2 of my most, precious collectibles in the movie. I wasn't really interested, but when they said that they would not be driven, because it just sometimes they say they haven't been driven and they end up driving and so forth. So we watched pretty carefully. So it was a nice compliment to me. It was wonderful to expose the cars, and it was a great story. And so I was flattered, and they were very respectful of the cars, and it really worked out well.
Yeah. And see, you talking about driving the cars, that's something I was noticing yesterday. I was reading an article about your collection yesterday, and I noticed that you had the opportunity to drive a few of the vehicles that are in the collection now to the museum itself. And as a classic car buff myself, who dreams of driving a classic car someday, other than the crappy piece of crap my dad had me drive to learn on, how do you tell me how that felt, especially the first time?
Well, I mean, it's probably second nature to him, but
not to me.
Well, so I don't know quite where to start, because a few things come to mind, because I shouldn't say this, but I have an electric car too, and electric cars are so smooth and so responsive, and you get into like the Bitsarini or the Cobra, it is just the polar opposite. You just have to put your 1965 hat on or whatever. But every car we have, we drive. I'm in the 200-mile-an-hour club at Bonneville, so I've had the pleasure of going over 200, down the Bonneville Salt Flats. But driving these old cars is you just have to understand what you're driving. The Ferrari's 1957, and in 57, I was like 16 years old, and it was probably like a rocket ship for 57. But in today's world, it's so crude, and the suspension's very tough, and so driving the cars, each one has its own personality, and represents the period from which it was constructed. So we have a 1960 Corvette, which was the first Corvette to race at Le Mans. We've driven that at Goodwood, and every single car we have, we start, we drive, we enjoy. The only one they won't let us drive is the dragster, but we take it out and we fire it up for Cackle Fest and so forth.
Bruce, you are probably the only person on this planet that has said, I have an electric car and I would not make fun of you because you have so much man in you because of the hardware around you. I'd be scared to make fun of you.
This is. I mean, when I bought this electric car, I got hate mail, from my friends.
I bet you did. I bet you did.
Oh my God, it was just, and it was. Anyways, it has its purpose, and unfortunately, it is the future. And at the Peterson, we just unveiled the new electric Volkswagen, and we have the buggy. We have, electric. The fastest car around Nürburgring and the fastest car up Pikes Peak now is electric. And
that's true.
It really is hard to say. So when I started racing motorcycles, we used to race big, 4-cycle, twins and singles, and they had such a manly sound. I mean, you just felt so good when you get on it. And then the guys started coming around with the Japanese 2-cycle bikes, and we just thought they were just like girly boys, Yeah, and we were sitting there just thumping and making noise, and all of a sudden they just started to kick our butts,
Sounds like a baby crying 3 rooms away. Wee, wee, wee. I mean, it's like, come on, man.
Yeah, especially as they blew by you,
Yeah. So you're sitting there going top speed, and they just wait a minute. That's cheating. They got to cheat like the New England Patriots. They got to
don't even start on New England. God, leave them alone.
So unfortunately, I think we're heading in that electric, direction, and it's a very different experience, but still for the old timers and the hardcore, passionate, racers, there's just a lot of life left in the combustion engine just for pure joy, and almost every car we have is pretty darn loud, and I like it that way.
Exactly. In fact, that was the next question I was going to ask you. Of course, maybe it's an electric vehicle, I don't know, but is there a vehicle out there that you're still hoping to add to the collection that you have yet to be able to, get your hands on?
That's a really good question, and it's been asked a lot. You know, I first of all, I don't look at it as a collection because I've been acquiring cars since the early '60s, and I've just bought a car out of passion. It's something that I want to drive, or something I want to race, or something that's important, you know, to history. So I bought my cars one at a time and never really thought of it much as a collection. But if somebody said, "Is there a car out there, you know, that if became available and you could afford it, that you would buy and add to the garage?" I would say there's one car that's just one of my all-time favorite cars. And the really good news is, especially for my wife, is that it's unaffordable, and there's only 3 of them, and they're owned by really, really, really rich guys, you know. So, and that's a Scarab, which was built in the late 50s, and it's a Chevrolet-powered sports car, and it's owned by Rob Walton, Miles Collier, and John Mozart. All those guys, those are the only 3, you know, extant, and they're all in good hands. And I don't want to say it'll never come my way, but I can't see how that could happen. So I sleep well at night, not worrying, oh my God, how am I going to figure out how to get a Scarab? Because that ain't never going to happen. So, you know.
I mean, yeah, and it's so funny you bring that up, because you talk about one of the most unattainable vehicles. I mean, you nailed it. So I have a favorite vehicle of all time. It's the Aston Martin V12 Vanquish.
Yes.
I tell Ellen all the time.
He thinks he's James Bond, but he's so far from it.
I'm so far from it. I can't even walk and chew bubblegum most times. And Bruce, this question might be unfair to you, or it might be completely fair to you. To me, I would envision it being unfair. And I want to ask Dan and Bruce this question. So as far as the Peterson Automotive Museum, or maybe in or out of it, do you have one vehicle that you say without a doubt is my all-time favorite vehicle? What would it be?
This is okay in the Peterson right now.
Well, in the Peterson or out. I mean, I'm assuming, Dan, because of the conversation we had earlier, your favorite might be in there, but I could be wrong. It's rare.
So for me, you know, kind of in the world of reality, you know, I would say the first Cobra resonates with me, because, you know, that's a one of a kind. It's the only one there is. It made just enough to scare me. It's historic, and it just checks every box. I think it's super good looking, and I would say that could be my favorite car. And the best looking car I've ever had is the Testarossa. I mean,
oh yeah,
it is like rolling art, you know. But if somebody said, you know, you got to take one with you, what would be? Probably be the Cobra.
That 60 Cobra, yeah, that's a great
I can't blame you for that one. I'd want that one too.
All right, Dan, which one that, you know, as soon as I mentioned that question, what's the first one that popped in your head?
So I have a picture on the wall of my office, and it's huge. It's like at least 5 feet wide and 3 feet high. And it's a really old black and white photo from the 50s of my pick. And it's funny that you ask it, because Bruce owns it. And it's the Doane Spencer Roadster. To me, that car
Cool.
is the epitome. I've been a hot rod guy since I was a little kid. My dad was a hot rod guy. That is the ultimate hot rod. To me, there is no cooler car on the planet than that car.
Man alive.
Awesome.
Put the sunglasses on, the Brill cream, and the comb through your hair, and just hop in that one, man.
Well, that is the holy grail. That is, if somebody said, what's my favorite hot rod in the world, that there's just, it's a real easy question and a real easy answer, and that would be the Doane Spencer Roadster. That guy, Doane Spencer, was, you know, one of the all-time, you know, great craftsmen, had the eye, and that car did everything from run the dry lakes. It's been in every state in the union, and it's as good looking today as it was when it was built. It really started in the 30s. It's the oldest hot rod in existence, and still still the prettiest. So, Dan, you got my vote. And I'm going to give you a big hat because Dan is an old soul. The guy, does miracles for us at the Peterson. And he also handles our luxury brands that we're involved with. And he also takes Concord and Rodeo Drive, which is on Father's Day. Dan does all those. And the reason is that he is so technically, spot on, with social media and understanding the marketplace. And then the other side of him, the flip side is he's an old soul. And boy, just picking the Doane Spencer, just check that box for sure.
And I mean, Bruce, it's the holiday season. Giving is in the air. I think you should just donate that Doane Spencer to him. I mean, or you know what? As a equal and completely unbiased party, you can give it to me.
No, don't give it to Chris.
And I will hold
don't
it.
Give it to Chris.
I am not known for wrecking or blowing up any vehicles. Don't go on social media. Don't Google it. I can't go to California anymore.
They can't go to Virginia anymore, sure.
So, but no, I mean, that's the one thing I picked up on both of you guys is the fact that your love for the vehicles, for the creativity, and for the art that they actually are is what led you to be able to donate. I'm just going to say donate and contribute to this movie.
Donate because he wants you to donate a car.
Trust me, nobody's going to donate anything to me once they see my record. That missing El Camino from '92 is still haunting me. But I just want to know what's next for you guys, because I mean, Ford versus Ferrari is going to be huge. Fantastic cast, fantastic movie. What's next for both of you?
Well, career-wise, I'm finished. but
Bruce is out. He's tapping.
Can I be you when I grow up?
I'll jump in and say, first of all, I think, what he says he's finished, but Bruce has got more energy than any 10 normal guys that I know. Yeah. And we've got some really cool stuff coming up. The Peterson, this is not breaking news, but it's kind of breaking news. We sort of teased this at Pebble Beach, but we've got some really cool exhibits coming out in the next few months.
Nice.
What's coming to Bruce's gallery? Well, do you want to tell him Bruce what's coming to your gallery after your exhibit ends?
Well, maybe you should. I mean, it's a big time rock and roll. It's a big time rock and roller that saw the importance of the Peterson Museum to mankind and certainly to the world of the automobile. But he saw it. Yeah. He had a gracious heart, and I'll let you take it from here, Dan.
So the Peterson, it's really, going back to when Bruce and Mr. Peterson started the museum over 25 years ago, the museum's had kind of a really cool track record of doing stuff with cars and guitars and cars and rock and roll, and there's such an intrinsic link between kind of hot rodding and rock and roll, and we've had a few of those exhibits over the years, but this one's a little different. And what's cool is about 6 years ago, Jaguar had us do an exhibit called The World's Most Beautiful Sports Coupes. And we went to different famous car people and said, hey, you pick what you think is the most beautiful coupe in history, and we'll put it in this exhibit. So we had all these different people, that were all kind of famous car guys, Patrick Dempsey and... Bobby Rahal and all these different kind of famous collectors and racers, and they all chose cars, and we put them in. And one that was sort of really interesting was James Hetfield from Metallica.
Yes.
Said, and he said, my pick for most beautiful sports coupe is my own car, Black Pearl, which was this Rick Dorr built kind of big, long, low. It was based on a Jaguar chassis, but had this body by Marcel that was all kind of looked like a Delahaye. And so it went in the exhibit, and that started this dialogue, with James. And for your listeners that don't know, he's a hardcore car guy.
Absolutely. Yes. And let me tell you, being a radio, well, I don't want to say how long I've been in radio, but I have many encounters working with the Metallica guys, and he knows cars ins and outs. And the other thing, his art, more than what the metal is, his art is metal. Yeah, this is some exciting stuff right here, because he is an artist.
Yes.
Exactly. Well, here's what's cool. He basically took the crown jewels of his collection, and he has some amazing stuff. The Black Pearl, there's another one called Aquarius. It's even bigger and longer and lower and cooler looking, and his entire collection, and he donated it to the Peterson.
Nice.
Oh, you kidding me?
I love James.
No.
Yeah.
So awesome.
It's really cool. And the museum's a 501c3, and so he donated the entire collection to the museum, and we're going to display them all to the public for the first time in basically a Hetfield-themed exhibit with all of his cars in the gallery early next year. So that's going to be one of our next big ones, and we're really excited. It's going to be huge.
Nice, because the Winning Numbers exhibit, did I read correctly, that goes until near the end of January, is that correct?
Yeah.
That will go, yeah.
So is this the first time that anybody's hearing about the Hatfield exhibit?
Technically, yes.
So this is breaking news.
We got the scoop.
Yeah,
dude.
we got the scoop on Behind the Wheel on RacingJunk.com. And let me tell you, just being a radio guy, being an old metal guy, because there's no such thing as rock radio anymore.
Nope.
Wow, for the first time in my life, I don't have words.
You made Chris speechless. That's pretty huge.
I'm a huge Hatfield fan. I've interviewed him I don't know how many times back when I used to work DC 101 and Rock 107 and Rock 92, all that. I mean, he's such a good guy. He knows his motors, he knows his vehicles, and he knows art. So this exhibit is going to be one for the ages that everybody should absolutely go take advantage of. So tell me, how do we get more information? Both on Dan, give us more information on the media group. Bruce, give us more information on the Peterson Automotive Museum. Tell us, how do we find you guys and how do we get out there?
Sure. Well, that Hatfield exhibit opens on January 30th, and he's actually going to be there. So come and join us.
Wow.
And you can go on the Peterson website to learn more about the Peterson and the current exhibits. We're open 7 days a week from 10 until 6 p.m. We have a great restaurant there to enjoy, so it's just a happening deal. And one of the most enjoyed attractions is a tour of our vault, and that's where the Hatfield cars are at the moment. But we have over 200 amazing cars in our lower level, and we give guided tours through that daily, multiple times daily. So if anybody's even considering coming to the Peterson, they really must do the vault tour because that's super special.
I want to set up a cot in the vault. Can I do that?
Not even considering. I am going to contact the governor to see if I can get that expulsion rejected so I can come back to California and visit this thing.
You contact Arnold.
Yeah, Chris, you want to come back? So I know. Get to the chopper.
And to see so the website is.
It's just funny about it.
The site's peterson.org, PETERSCN. A lot of people spell it with an O, but it's with an E. And if anyone wants to see the 8 meter stock, just go to YouTube and find the Peterson YouTube channel. And I will say what was really cool is that little short film had 78,000 views before the Damon movie came out.
Right.
And it now has 440,000.
Nice. Of course it's going to hit the million mark here soon.
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean,
I watched it twice yesterday.
Let me tell you, and plus the fact that it's the impetus of what actually started that one. I mean, it's bound to. You have to blow it up, and I hope that everybody who gets a chance to listen to the podcast goes and checks out the movie because it just shows the work that both Dan and Bruce have put into the lifelong venture and love of automobiles and the story of Ford versus Ferrari.
Exactly, because that was the greatest thing about both 8 meters as well as Ford versus Ferrari, in my opinion. As a car buff, we all most car buffs love racing, but not every car buff does. But, watching the story of how a car can come to life when they take it into the motorsports realm, which you don't see that very often nowadays, but back then, that's how you sold cars. And honestly, the only way to prove that Ford had a car powerful enough to be a sports car was to take on the most powerful sports car of the time.
I mean, every time Bruce mentioned Testarossa, you saw my expression. You saw how it just,
Oh, yeah. Y'all couldn't see it, but I did.
Let me tell you, in my soul, I want to bow at Bruce's feet. I mean,
I want to live in Bruce's museum.
I want to live in the museum.
Out here, I'd be happy.
I mean,
I'd be happy to give you a tour.
I'd love to come.
Nah, Bruce, you probably don't want to give me a tour because
He'll steal something.
I'm gonna take something. I'm sorry.
He likes souvenirs.
It's just like, Chris, what are you doing with that header in your pocket? Don't worry about it.
You didn't see anything.
But
we would welcome you anytime, and we love sharing our museum, and I'm so glad that you're taking the time to do this broadcast as well. And they used to have the expression "win on Sunday, sell on Monday," and that still goes. I mean, you look at NASCAR. I mean, people have their favorites and they cheer for them, and when they win, they're proud to drive them. And it was, Audi winning Le Mans that people thought it was okay to drive an Audi and Porsches and Ferraris. So it definitely adds cred to the car.
If it weren't for and you know what, I get in trouble sometimes with some of my automotive groups I've worked with. If it weren't for Le Mans, exactly. Porsche would not be Porsche. Plain and simple.
Yeah.
Plain and
true.
simple.
Yeah.
I mean, they have built a legacy around just that.
Especially since, no offense, but Porsches aren't that attractive.
I mean,
they're not.
Tell that
to
every attorney in his late 30s. Okay, Dan Kahn, Bruce Meyer. This has been an absolute honor. Thank you, gentlemen, both so much. If you get a chance, check out Kahn Media. Which, by the way, Dan, you've been extremely humble. You haven't really pumped Kahn Media at all. How do we get a hold of you guys?
KahnMedia.com, KAHNMedia. I appreciate you saying that. Thanks.
Yeah. Oh no, absolutely. And then Bruce, I mean, obviously with the, Peterson Automotive Museum, Peterson with the EN. We are so honored to have both of you here today, gentlemen. Have a fantastic holiday.
Yes.
Thank you for joining us, and we can't wait to catch up with you. We are going to check in with you with that Hatfield exhibit.
Oh,
so be expecting that in January.
Tell James to give us
great.
a call.
Well, come out and see us now.
Oh, definitely.
Guys, have a fantastic holiday.
Oh, thank you so much. Happy holidays, you guys.
Thanks.
Let me tell you about making my holiday. Those
Making
two
my
guys.
world.
Yeah, those two guys just made my
right?
holiday.
Yeah, I always say it would fly me out to L.A., but that's all right. I'm going to find my way back out there someday.
I mean, I want to go to this Hatfield exhibit.
I do too.
And you heard
big
that
time.
first. You heard that right here.
Yeah, we got the scoop on behind the wheel. Nobody else got the scoop. We got the scoop.
We got the scoop on Behind the Wheel on RacingJunk.com. For your ears and to give you tears. You heard it first right here, kids. Hi. Oh, God. But you know what? The sad thing is...
Did you jump into your ego, your DJ ego?
Yeah, I did. I dropped into my radio DJ ego, which, by the way, if you ever hear a radio jock talking like that, call them and tell them to stop. Just be like, stop it. That's fake. You're horrible. You got no talent. Bring out your real talent, because every radio jock who's still left standing is fantastic and talented.
That's right.
Tell them they don't need that stuff. But I am stoked about the Hatfield exhibit. I'm stoked to see Ford versus Ferrari.
Yeah, I can't believe you haven't seen this movie. You need to go see it. I know you can't sit there for 3 hours.
You brought the people.
I brought the people.
That were the basis of that movie.
You're welcome.
I mean, granted, Carroll Shelby, God rest his soul, one of the best interviews I ever did.
I never got to meet the man. I always wanted to.
Fantastic interview. And you know what? If I get a chance, if I can find the cassette tape, because that's how long it was. If I can find the cassette tape of that interview, I'll give it to you.
Oh, please do.
And
if he does, we'll find a way to digitize it.
and you know what? God rest his soul. I need to give a shout out to this one, Jack Armstrong, who worked with me at one of the radio stations. Yes. Who's passed. Was a friend of Carroll Shelby.
Wow.
And that's actually how we connected and ended up working together, was because of the interview I did in a different market that Jack had also interviewed him and had one of his cars.
Wow.
Carroll signed one of Jack's cars.
Oh, so jealous.
Yeah, and Jack had, it was a great story. But anyway, what a fantastic way to end 2019.
Absolutely.
But I feel so bad for you.
For me, I know I got to step it up for 2020.
Because what you going to do in 2020?
I've actually got January kind of lined up. We got something pretty exciting for January as well, but I'm not gonna scoop it yet because I still got to line up the date.
Okay, all right. Which is why we're doing this in a week before Christmas. Okay.
Well, it might be almost February before we get back.
That and my recent job change, which is fantastic, has taken me all over the place.
Yes.
We'll talk more about that in January or maybe February.
Depending on when we're back.
Since it's going to be Daytona, which is where I will be.
Chris is all excited because he's going to be involved in NASCAR.
Yes. Well, I mean, the truck series. The truck series.
Yeah.
We'll get to that more later.
It's okay.
We'll get to that more later. But you know what? Happy holidays, Ellen.
Yes.
Love you. Merry Christmas.
Love you. Merry Christmas. We're so
Happy
excited.
holidays. As a matter of fact, I got something for you upstairs.
I'm scared what he's going to give me out.
Yeah.
I don't really want to be a pimp for Christmas.
Yeah. Let me tell you what I got
I
you,
think
girl.
he's got me some of them stripper heels, y'all. I'm a little scared. I can't walk on them.
And that just terrified me. Okay.
No, happy holidays, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us in 2019, and stay tuned to Behind the Wheel in 2020.
Because it is going to be a fantastic year. And for all of our fans, all of our friends, and especially our folks at racingjunk.com, thank you for letting us do this. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas. We love you. Thank you for listening. Please subscribe. Please share. Leave us some comments and let us know what you think. We look forward to seeing you in 2020. Have a fantastic and safe Christmas. Love you.